The next step you need to be looking at is all the interactions of listing your house. Listing your house is not mandatory to sell it. Obviously, you can sell it yourself. But having a realtor sometimes will be required by your lender. If you have an FHA loan, it's required that you have your house listed on the multiple listing service. And that goes for a lot of conventional loans as well. Even if it's not required, when you list it, it just is more legit. From the eyes of a lender, they can see for sure that you've made a good faith effort to expose it to the widest market possible. How do you find a good realtor? Because I've talked about some different ways of getting money and making money on this transaction. And the way that I recommend hinges on you being able to work with the realtor who's willing to rebate you some of the money back. There's some different ways to find realtors that do this, but you want to find a realtor that's already used to rebating money back or offering a discounted rate. Then that allows you to charge the bank the full amount on your own house, the full whatever's possible to charge for a commission, and you can expect that your discount realtor will rebate you the difference between what they discounted and what you charge the bank. You would negotiate that up front. I have an addendum, an extra page that you can add to your realtor's listing agreement, whoever you choose, that will allow you to spell out those terms of how you get that rebate back so that it works just like you expect. And also, you can spell out how they'll cooperate with you on providing some values and some extra services for the short sale that you may need in negotiating. I recommend going to the web to find a discount realtor because typically they're younger and web savvy. ePerks.com will bring up a lot of discount realtors in your area. You can also do a Google search like flat rate listing or discount realtor. Avoid the ones with flashy signs, the one with television ads. In our area, we have Realty One, Howard Hanna Smythe Kramer, and we have teams of realtors. All those people, they won't discount at all. In fact, they're probably going to charge you a premium for the glitz and glamour. Some are willing to discount significantly, especially if they don't have to do all the work. If you're negotiating, if you're doing all the stuff with the bank, if you're doing all the work, and all they have to do is just send you over an offer and not really talk to anybody, and they don't spend too much money marketing and too much of their time showing the house, you can show them why they need to discount. They're willing to work with you. Locally, we have a broker that's for $350 they'll list your house on the multiple listing service, and there's no other fee ever at all. I would never do that. So if you live in Ohio, don't ask me. They'll do that, and I wouldn't be surprised if you were to talk to that agent. You could say something like this. You could say something like, "You're only charging a total of $350 to put this in the multiple listing service. Would you allow me to pay a commission of 3 to 7% to you and then rebate me back the difference between the flat rate of $350 and the full commission back at closing? I want to do this to have a negotiating advantage with the short sale lender, and I will handle all the short sales by myself and all the negotiation with the buyer and the lender." Just explain that and show them my course manual and show them that you've been trained in this. And negotiate whatever you can with somebody that you trust. Pursue it from there. Make sure you use the addendum that I include that spells out the details of what the rebate will be. There's some things there's some terms you need to know when you're dealing with an agent. Most likely, you'll be presented with an agency disclosure form. It talks about agency versus dual agency. If there's only one agent involved in a transaction with the buyer and seller, that would be considered dual agency. And so an agent's going to want a little more of a cut, let's put it that way. If you negotiate them down to the bone, an agent may expect more if there's both a buyer and a seller, only he is the only agent. Other things you can say when talking with an agent, some lines you may use, or let's say that the realtor you're working with doesn't want to work with you. They're a little slow to. You could explain to them. You could say, "I'm a trained negotiator. I've taken this course on how to talk with banks, and if you're having a hard time finding a realtor that wants to give you a commission rebate such as this, because they're not used to it, you can explain to them the service that you're offering, you're helping them close another deal, and you're going to work with them. You could also offer to give that realtor some of this training and just explain just some of this that'll kind of explain what you're trying to do. And like I said, use the listing addendum. When you sign the listing, have the agent sign this or something at least agreeing to the commission arrangement. You don't want to just do it verbally because that'll just have too many problems. Always get everything in writing. One caveat to consider is Ohio law requires that any rebates from commission to buyer or seller by an agent must be disclosed on the agency disclosure agreement. And that's an agreement that all parties, both the buyer and seller, sign. So just so you know, when you get this money back, that will be disclosed to everybody, and that's the right way to do it. Don't do anything that you can't disclose to all parties. When you're listing a house, there are certain pricing strategies to follow, and a lot of times your realtor is not going to understand the pricing in a short sale situation. Very few realtors properly price short sale houses. There's two ways of thinking about how to price a short sale, and one of them I personally prefer, but not everybody agrees with. Some agents start and they put the house at a very low price, and then they raise it to whatever the bank asks. And that's the way I prefer, and I'll explain why in just a second. And then there's the opposite, where some agents prefer to start it, at maybe 20% above the market because that's what is required to actually pay off the house. You would need a sale 20% above what normal market value would be just to pay off your own mortgage and all your debt. And then they just lower it incrementally over time. And I think that's a real problem, and I'll explain. The reason I prefer having a lower listing first and then possibly increasing it is this. When you lower the listing price, what it does is it actually will be looked at by the person who comes to value the house. So typically that's another agent. Sometimes it's an appraiser. Both of them have access to MLS listing history. And the key element, the one thing that will destroy your deal every time, is if the value by the bank's appraiser or agent comes in too high and you can't sell it for the amount they want. The bank wants you to sell it for. So when you start it out lower, it actually influences the broker's price opinion or the appraisal, and it increases your chance of being able to complete the sale of your house successfully. The worst case scenario that can happen if you put it too low is that you get a low offer and the bank doesn't like it and it doesn't influence the appraisal or a broker's price opinion low enough, and the bank asks you to raise it up higher, raise your listing up higher. And if this happens, then you can put it up high and then go to the second method of putting it high and then lowering it incrementally. Now, even if the bank appraises it too high, if you show that you've made a good faith effort to get a certain value, but then you've lowered it over time, that shows that the value that you finally get is probably, the offer that you finally get when it's lowered over time is probably pretty good. Just to go over the one that I typically avoid, starting higher and then lowering the price slowly, the benefit is that it shows the bank good faith effort that you tried to market it higher. Like I said, you can always go back and do that later if the bank wants to see you try to market it higher. One problem is that I have found that really can screw up your deal. You may get, if you market your house for the very top value, you may get kind of like an iffy buyer that maybe is not super sophisticated. He presents a high offer, but it's full of contingencies, it's weak, and the bank approves it. Like I said, this just protects you and will make it weak. Has got its expectations set at a very high amount, and what that means is that you're completely screwed, because now, like I said, it's always harder to go back and try to renegotiate with your lender. If you have time to sell, you can use the strategy of going higher to lower and slowly lowering and stuff. But even then, it can oftentimes get you painted into a corner. I always recommend starting low, even maybe as low as 70 to 80% of the fair market value. When lowering your property down to say 70 or 80 or 90% of the listing price, Your realtor, if they don't understand short sales or have not really done them or haven't learned from me, they may very well kind of give you a hard time about that. And you need to explain to your realtor that you need to list it low so that you can get an offer quickly and get started submitting it to the lender so that you can get your appraisal out and also try to set your lender's expectations properly so when you actually get a decent offer, it'll go quickly and easily without any hiccups. Also, something to understand when you're submitting offers is all offers that you accept on your home will be accepted contingent on bank acceptance of short sale and also contingent on the bank forgiving any deficiency that may be involved in that short sale. This is important so that you can protect yourself when doing these transactions. When working with agents, there's some different ways to even increase the commission amount. What I'm seeing more and more short sale specialist agents do is actually requiring that the buyer bring in a premium extra amount above the purchaser price to pay buyer's commission. And so the short sale agents will actually collect a full 6 or 7% on the selling side, paid out of proceeds of the house, and the buyer has to bring in an extra 3%. So that could actually be a large amount if you're able to collect all that. Sometimes it's hard to negotiate that, kind of have to give a little bit, but it's worth trying to do that when you get into negotiations with buyers, sellers, and banks, because you're getting a certain percentage of what your realtor makes. If you can figure out a way to increase that commission through either charging buyer extra fees or I had talked about earlier in the course actually putting in a processing fee of $1,500, something like that, to your broker. Those things can net you more money.